Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. We are going in depth on the current work of PAVI, or persons associated with visual impairment, with their president, Bhawani Persad. President Persad, how you do, sir? All the best for the new year.
Well, same to you and same to your crew. Happy New Year. We are 2 weeks inside the new year, but it's not too late. As they say, better late than never. So Happy New Year, everybody. And it's nice to be on board.
Thank you so much. Well, Bhawani, how long you go for this president thing? I think they should call you President Emeritus and finish, you know.
No, sir. No, sir. Our Constitution clearly dictates that you can serve only 2 consecutive terms. So after this term is finished, I am done for a while.
All right, and with that though, what is PAVI about, the role of this association in our society?
PAVI was formed out of the need by blind and visually impaired persons, one, to have a voice of their own, and two, to provide services that were not provided at that time, back in 1995 or thereabouts, especially in the area of rehabilitation, or what we now call adjustment to blindness. That means that we train you as a blind or visually impaired person to walk the road properly, to use the proper cane techniques. We train you in orientation, mobility, that's using cane. We train you in daily living skills, because a lot of people who've lost their sight would have been able to do things, you know, even around their home or whatever, but they now have to do it a little different. You know, a lot of us took sight for granted. And when we became blind, we thought that, you know, life was ending, but it is not. It's just another page or another chapter that you turn. So you have to do things a little differently, but you adapt it and you make yourself useful and comfortable, so that you won't be a burden to yourself, nor your family, nor even your community. You could still go to church, you could still go to the doctor, you could still go where you want, once you are taught the right procedures of how to get from point A to point B, and that is where orientation and mobility comes in. And then, you know, inside the house, you know your house surroundings. You can still make your cup of tea. Some people still manage to cook extensively. So, you know, there is life after blindness, as I always say.
But life after blindness during the pandemic, what has that been like?
Well, during the pandemic, it is a little stifled in that services cannot be provided to clients because of the face-to-face challenge. And two, we are working with clients remotely or virtually to guide them, to advise them. So we can't really visit anybody's homes or anything like that. But we still keep in touch with our clients to make sure that they're all right and to make sure that they're managing. And if they want any help, any assistance, any guidance, we advise them virtually or via the telephone.
And it's interesting because sometimes there may be an issue or a factor that comes into play. You bring it to bear, and you really don't think about it. But what you don't think about might make so much of a difference to someone else. And I think of the fact that we're supposed to be coughing like Batman into the crook of our elbow, but at the same time, if someone is being guided, someone who is visually impaired, that is where someone normally has their hand. So these sorts of challenges, so this is one. What is being done with regard to that, and what are some of the other things that you would have to deal with, or the organization would have to deal with?
Right. That crook of the elbow thing is something that, you know, we have to deal with. So what we find is that person put their hand on the shoulder of the other person, or they allow the other person to hold them. But thankfully, many of us have not been going anywhere. So there is less crowd and traffic on the streets, you know, these days for us as blind and visually impaired persons, because a lot of us are staying home or have been asked to stay home, right? So that has eliminated to some degree the problem. But whoever we go out with, whether it's a family member or what, we know we can trust that person, and therefore, you know, there is a level of confidence in that kind of arrangement. People suggested all kinds of other things, like, for example, you holding one side of the cane and the other person holding another side. But that is not as comfortable as when you see with holding of the arm or putting your hand on the person's shoulder, you are able to gauge when they're stepping down, when they're going up, and that kind of thing. The other challenge, of course, has to do with vocals. For example, some people sound very muffled under the mask, so you have to ask them to repeat what they've said, and that could be a little challenging at times.
And I'm trying to imagine, and this is me just imagining my eyes closed and I'm using a cane and somebody holding that cane, and that feels uncomfortable, me just thinking about it.
It is.
So I'm wondering,
It is very
so I can imagine where that, I don't think that that suggestion came from somebody who was visually impaired.
No, certainly not. Certainly
and
not.
I think that speaks
But we have to
the...
adapt and we have to find ways of doing things. But thankfully, when I talk with most of my colleagues, not just here in Trinidad and Tobago, but the Caribbean, most of them are staying home and working from home if they have to work, and getting that kind of thing going rather than being on the streets. I think the COVID-19 has brought to the fore the use of technology and its impact on not just the average citizen, but on citizens with challenges, and blind and visually impaired persons are no exception to the rule. Now, we have to thank technology because you can do so many things using your iPhone or your Android phone that you thought you could not have done. For example, you would be able to skirt the newspaper, skirt whatever, look for whatever you want to do using your phone because of screen talking devices that have been placed on most of these phones now. And then you can instruct certain programs to get you a number, to call this, to call that, to search YouTube for you. So technology has made life a lot more simpler. It is still very expensive for a lot of us, but those of us who can afford it, and everybody tries to make the sacrifice, it goes a long way to help.
And with that, we take a short break. We are speaking with President of PAVI, Persons Associated with Visual Impairment, Bhawani Persad. We return with more. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are speaking with a President of the Persons Associated with Visual Impairment, Bhawani Persad, and we are going in depth on the work of the organization throughout this pandemic. And Mr. Persad, many times people hear someone with visual impairment and they think of a cane and they think of baskets. But you just spoke about the use of technology and moving further, things that the pandemic has kind of forced people into. So what are some of those success stories that PAVI can boast having on its resume with regard to training, with regard to helping people achieve their fullest potential?
Since PAVI was launched in 1995, we have worked closely with a number of agencies, including the government ministries, to empower blind persons, to allow them to take their rightful place in society. To on-the-job training, to other initiatives, YTEP, etc. So we take them and we give them the skills, and they in turn use those skills to the max. We have persons now who are employed, like for example, the Disability Affairs Unit. Two of our members got the necessary training and did the necessary courses that were required. They had the qualifications of subject levels, whether it be O's and E's and whatever, and then they got the extra training, including confidence building, and they are happily employed at the Ministry of Social Development in the Disability Affairs Unit, quite appropriately. We have others in other sectors who are employed. So it's not just basket making now. It's as I said before, technology is allowing us to do a lot more. We can be more efficient and more proficient. We did have, before the advent of technology, one or two blind persons employed in the government service as stenographers, etc. And that used to be a long-winded thing because you had to take your notes and then type back and all of that. Now you can fast-track things using technology to the max. So technology has brought on a lot of added benefits to blind and visually impaired persons, making them equal peers in the workplace or anywhere else.
But how is the work of PAVI funded, Mr. Persad?
Well, for some time, when we started, we got funding from our parent agency, and when I say a parent, a regional agency called the Caribbean Council for the Blind. And in 2009 to 2015, we got some government subvention, but since 2016, we have been basically fighting on our own through fundraising and other initiatives to sustain certain programs. We had to curtail a lot of the programs towards the end of 2017 because our funding was drying up and all our resources were being utilized. So our programs are very limited in terms of face-to-face activity. As I said, we try to keep members in tune using other methods, technology, using emails and using these kinds of communication. But in terms of face-to-face, we have been forced to curtail many of the training avenues that we would have done pre-2018.
And with the advent of the technology, Mr. Persad, one of the things that we're able to do is to contribute virtually. So people can deposit money into, I think it's the GoFundMe account as well as the bank account that you have. So we have information that we're sharing on that, but also get it from your mouth as well. Thank you.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't remember all the statistical numbers, but it is up on your screen. Or you can call PAVI at 220-1073 during normal working hours for us, which is from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday to Friday, and you can get the relevant information. We can send it. And if you visit our Facebook page, I guarantee you will find all the information there as to how you can contribute towards assisting us. Now, let me say that whilst we are not doing much face-to-face communication at this time, we have an office to operate. We still have a staff inside. We still have things happening. We try to link people with other organizations, with other training programs. So we have to keep the engine room flowing. And in order to keep that flowing, we need funding to assist us to meet our commitments, whether it be to pay staff or to meet our obligations, including rent, etc. So we do need your funding assistance to sustain us for some time. We hope that once the pandemic gets out of the way, we don't know when, but we can resume face-to-face activities, even training programs face-to-face. But everything now is virtual. We do training programs virtually. We have meetings virtually, and we just keep the engine going.
And so you're saying there's still people in the office, even though there may not be that much face-to-face, but people are manning the phone lines and operating in the office?
Of course, there's an office personnel.
And the last time we spoke, there was a fundraiser. How often are these initiatives taking place, and what are some of the other things that have lined up?
Okay, well, we try to make these as frequently as possible. We don't want to overburden ourselves with too much work. At least 3 to 4 fundraisers for the year. Over the past couple of years, we have a program called Caring and Sharing. Now, that is done during the Lenten period with churches, where we write churches, and we ask them to ask their members, look, you're making a sacrifice for Lent, give part of your sacrifice towards helping the work of PAVI. And we received some tremendous response from our Presbyterian brothers, from our Catholic brothers, and we hope that more churches could come on board and use that the sacrifices made, to donate towards the work of PAVI. We will have other things. For example, this year we are looking at another virtual concert with WAC 90.1. We did something with Gaia last year. If it be permitted by the end of the year, we might resume our big fundraiser, which is our annual Christmas luncheon, or something in like manner. So we have to, again, the pandemic is causing us to think differently and to approach things in a much different way. But as far as planning is concerned, right now it's difficult to plan too far ahead. We know what we want to do in the next 3 to 6 months, but we're hoping that things will get better and that we can resume some of the things that we have been accustomed having face-to-face rather than just virtual.
Definitely. And in terms of that information, RBL account number 320-427-304-201. That's 320-427-304-201. RBL account number, and fundmetnt.com, PAVI, keeping the lights on. And in terms of the work that you are doing, you said that, assistance is also given to children. What are the details of that, Mr. Persad?
Well, there were programs that we had. For example, we had a program called Early Intervention, where we trained parents and teachers to deal with children between the ages of 0 to 7. We hope we can bring that program back on board, because every year you have children who are becoming blind or who are born blind, and the parents don't know how to deal with them. Teachers don't know how to deal with them. You know, a lot of emphasis now is placed on integration. And in order for a child with a visual impairment to be fully integrated, the parents must work hand in hand with that child. And therefore, the training is important, the adjustment is important, the guidance is important, because of the fact that you just don't want to drop the child in a school as a daycare center. You want the child to perform, and you want that child to perform effectively, because you never know, that child can someday become your own family breadwinner, or can make a meaningful contribution for him or herself, and therefore be an active citizen rather than a recipient citizen.
And just before we go, we have about 1.5 or 2 minutes, I think. What are some of the things that you would like to see in terms of the future as it relates to the visually impaired and having the visually impaired individuals reach their fullest potential?
Okay, one of the things as far as blind persons are concerned, as I always say, Dike, Braille is to the blind as print is to the sighted. A lot of us read Braille, some of us don't read Braille, but it is important once you lose your sight to learn Braille, because you may not use it for the big things, but you may use it for simple things, labeling cans, etc. Sometimes now we have apps on the phone which you can call up, let's say CVAS here in Trinidad, which is a facilitating organization, and they can help you look in your cupboards and see which cans is labeled what, etc. But sometimes you want a greater degree of independence. You don't want to have that phone in your hand all the time. You want to know you can walk in the cupboard, pick up a can and say, yes, this is labeled pigeon peas, because you labeled it in Braille. You understand? We now have a lot of things that what we call Braille, paperless Braille, which is coming on the market and which has been here with us, where you can actually read things off a screen without even having paper in front of you. For example, I could be working at TDT, reading the news in Braille, and it will not be noticed, because you're using your computer, using your device, and you're getting the information as it is appearing on the screen. So those are some of the technological advances, and therefore life for persons with the visual impairment will become even better and better in the future. And we see now that more persons with visual impairment, like other disabilities, are being integrated into the normal school system. And blind people will also have the opportunity just now through the Marrakesh Treaty to have access to over 700,000 books that we used to struggle to have in the past, especially textbooks, because sometimes it was difficult to print or to transcribe. But now, with the advent of all kinds of technologies, all kinds of programs, all kinds of initiatives that will benefit, we have things at the tip of our fingers. No longer do we have to depend on you to read the newspaper, but we can do it ourselves.
Yes, and I think moving from the mental aspect of it being something that is a handout versus an investment into the individuals of Trinidad and Tobago and beyond, I want to thank you very much for the work that you're doing, Mr. Persad. And we also remind of those numbers again, RBL account number 320-427-304-201. That's 320-427-304-201. And there we had it, President of Persons Associated with Visual Impairment, or PAVI, Bhawani Persad. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you for joining us.